I call to order this November 20th, 2024 meeting of the North Allegheny School Board. Please rise and join us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, moving on to our calendar review. We have our meeting this evening. Then our next meeting will be our reorganization meeting on December 4th. And we will have our final meeting of 2024 on December 11th. And that will be a combined voting meeting. And we will have our report on student achievement. Next, we'll move on to speakers on voting items. We have no pre-registered speakers on voting items. If there is anyone who would like to speak for up to 2 minutes on something that is on our agenda for this evening, now is your opportunity. Is there anyone in the audience who would like to speak on a voting item? Okay, seeing none, we will move on to our approval of the minutes. Ms. Hardy.
Thank you, Mrs. Warner. This evening, the board will vote to approve the minutes of the October 9th and October 20th, 2024 meetings, and I so move.
Second.
Any comments on this item? Seeing none, we're ready for the vote.
The vote is open. The vote is closed and passes unanimously.
Okay, now we will move on to our student activities report. Ms. Faber and Mr. Corona.
Thank you, Mrs. Warner. The Tiger Strong Live Long Club hosts school workouts every Tuesday from 2:15 to 3:15 p.m. They run an after-school basketball program, which they call Hoops. They also have an online recipe book on their TSLL website. Their student-run pickleball club runs every Tuesday, and they have exciting plans for student wellness opportunities during activity periods. Spring play auditions will be coming up in December. Practices begin after winter break, with performances in February. The spring play this year is The Hunchback of Notre Dame. The third graders will be invited to attend a performance during the school day. The table tennis club is up and running full tilt. They meet weekly on Wednesdays with an average of approximately 30 students in attendance, playing on our 12 full-size tables in the NAI cafeteria. They have a competitive play each week, ladder style, along with half the tables reserved for casual play, and one table set aside for Coach E to help students take their games to the next level. The Multicultural Student Union has an upcoming plan to celebrate Diwali with the Lights Out Diwali Expo in the NAI auditorium. After getting approval for their plans, they will decorate and publicize for their event within the school. Their past event celebrated Dia de los Muertos. Each homeroom received a plaster skull for them to decorate after researching designs displaying Mexican culture. The NAI Robotics Club had their industry tour of Butler Technologies, Inc. on October 4th. They are now building robots to compete in the BOTS IQ competition and VEX robotics competition. I now want to point your attention to the two pie charts at the bottom of my report. As you can see, NAI saw an increase of over 30% of students saying they felt more connected to their school from last year to this year. Our PBIS team has been working tirelessly to help students feel respected and like they belong. I want to give them a huge thanks for the wonderful work they have been doing this year, from coming into the classrooms and handing out prizes to working behind the scenes, ensuring that students feel safe at school. And a special thanks to Mr. Warner for helping me collect this data. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mrs. Warner. First, I'd like to congratulate all of the student athletes who signed with colleges this week to continue their talents. It is great to see so many dedicated students get the opportunity to perform at the college level. The Nash Italian Club had the opportunity to make bruschetta at last month's meeting. They greeted 3 foreign exchange students from Italy who are joining North Allegheny this year. Yesterday, they made orecchietta funghi e parmigiano. Sorry, I don't speak Italian, which is pasta with portobello mushroom and parmigiano sauce. And I was told they were surprised by a special guest, Mr. Dramo, yesterday. HOSA had their 2 meetings this past month, and during both sessions, they had a guest speaker come and share information regarding their profession. Their first meeting was with an anesthesiologist who worked at BHS and talked about his experience in working in anesthesiology. Further, their second speaker was a Columbia and UPenn graduate who works as an oncology radiologist at Allegheny Health Network. Lastly, the Knitting and Crochet Club will continue working with the Nash Interact Club to knit hats and scarves for Ukrainian orphans. Thank you very much.
Thank you both. And thank you for bringing that, the pie charts, Ms. Faber. I really appreciated seeing that data. Thank you for collecting it. All right, so now we are proceeding with a consent agenda this evening because we discussed all these items at our meeting last week. However, policy 005 on organization is currently on our consent agenda, and we have received updated guidance from PSBA that as a result of, and the guidance has changed as a result of a court decision. So to give everyone an opportunity to review the new recommended language, I suggest removing the item from tonight's agenda in hopes of putting it back on the agenda in December as a first read and a second read and a vote in December or in January. Would someone like to make a motion to remove item 48, policy 005 organization from tonight's agenda?
So moved.
Oh.
Second.
Any comments or questions on this? Okay, so we're ready for a vote.
One item I need to recuse myself from
This
the
is-
supplemental. Oh, this is
We're
a vote
voting
on
on
this. I'm
the
sorry.
motion to
Yeah,
remove
go ahead.
item 48.
All in favor of removing item 48 from this evening's consent agenda?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, the motion passes, and we will remove 48 from tonight's vote on consent agenda.
Thank you. Now we can have a motion. Can we have a motion on the consent agenda?
So moved.
Second.
Mr.
Um,
McClure, would you like to make your comment now?
I would, thank you. I do need to recuse myself on the supplementals due to my wife's diving coaching supplemental.
Anyone else have questions or comments?
Thank you,
Dr.
Mrs.
Sinkovia.
Warner. Just one comment on item 44. When we reviewed this item last week, we did not have specific quote amounts for the installation of the wall mount panels. The total amount comes to approximately $145 per panel, which is lower than what Mr. Cox thought it would be when we first discussed it a few months ago. And the total cost for the panels, including the installation, is well under the budgeted amount in the capital plan.
Excellent. Thank you, Dr. Simkoviak. Any other comments or questions? All right. Seeing none, we're ready for the vote.
The vote is open. The vote is closed, and all items pass unanimously with one abstention. Mr. McClure, number 31.
Thank you. Now we will move on to our special reports. First, legal counsel.
We have submitted our report electronically.
Okay, thank you very much. Citizens Advisory Committee and the North Allegheny Foundation reports. Dr. Simkoviak.
No updates on the Citizens Advisory Committee since our meeting last week. The North Allegheny Foundation has started work on the Distinguished Alumni Dinner to be held in January.
Thank you. The A.W. Beatty Career Center report and our legislative report. Mrs. Blackburn.
Thank you, Mrs. Warner. A.W. Beatty, the superintendents all met and they have decided to delay the addition for now. So we aren't sure exactly when we'll be looking at doing it or what the size will be. And legislative, we all know there was an election and now until there's new people in office and so forth, there's really no report to make at this time. There will be a lot of things coming up, I assume. And there was a Secretary of Education proposed pick. So we'll just wait until we see who it is. Thank
Okay.
you.
That's the end of our special reports. So now we will move on to speakers on non-voting items. We have two pre-registered speakers who will be able to speak for up to 5 minutes. Our first pre-registered speaker is Kevin Draper.
Good evening, members of the board. I'm here today to address concerns with iPad use, safety, and security among elementary school students. After seeking to gain a better understanding of the existing vetting protocols and safeguards, I'm shocked by the responses I've received so far. As a parent, there is not a way to remove apps within the NA ecosystem that goes beyond grade level work. I've found that my children and most other students have dozens of unused applications that are beyond grade level instructions on their devices. Additionally, apps such as Duolingo and YouTube are available, which have little or nothing to do with existing elementary curriculum and often become time wasters and distractions for students. The majority of the applications on an elementary school student's devices are either not grade level relevant or downloaded by students with little to no intentionality behind their academic use. As parents, we do not have individual iPads for our own children because of a belief that technology should be used with intentionality, especially with regard to school and learning. However, through casual discussions with other students and parents, I find that most students use their iPads as toys and not for instructional purposes, both at school and at home. Elementary students reported the use of free iPad time when they've completed work ahead of time or as a reward for behavioral recognition. I've downloaded the NA-approved Securely application, but this app lacks sufficient controls because the district has elected to secure access to sites like YouTube under the guise of educational pretext. Additionally, a running record of student sites visiting doesn't stop anything in real time. So although I can see that as a parent, it does not teach students how to use technology as a tool and not something to simply pass the time in the classroom. Upon reaching out to Ms. Victoria Lojek, coordinator of educational technology, to discuss these concerns, I was shocked to learn that according to her own account, quote, during COVID, many apps were free and open to teachers, which led to many resources in our ecosystem. Now that we are past remote learning, we are developing a process for vetting those apps. We are focused on curricular connection, data privacy, and additional factors, i.e. usage, cost, rostering, hardware capability. Additionally, as part of our strategic plan, we are working on earning Apple Distinguished Schools at all of our K-8 buildings. This designation for us is more about working with our teachers to use the iPad as an instructional learning tool than just a designation. We are also evaluating our LMS learning management system, which has been a barrier for our teachers regarding instructional technology, end quote. All of which is to say the district doesn't currently have a vetting system or protocol or instructional process for proper use of these technologies based on universally recognized set of guidelines like those of ISTE, the International Society for Technology Education Standards. These discussions should have happened long ago and represent a severe lag in addressing the 21st century classroom. After an attempt to continue this conversation, Ms. Lojek failed to respond and simply ignored my concerns. There is no doubt that if a sufficient audit of student time on their iPads was conducted by the district, students would be found to overwhelmingly be using their iPads for games and video exploration that have nothing to do with their learning. This is something that should greatly concern the district and shortchanges young students of valuable learning time, as they don't yet understand how these technologies are developed to steal their attention for as long as possible without necessarily providing any value to the user. As you can tell, I'm very passionate about this topic and feel that the district is not doing nearly enough to protect or inform our youngest students. If the district has audited iPad usage in any real way, which should be possible given existing administration access, I would appreciate you providing that information. Otherwise, providing iPads without any real plan for their use, process, or vetting applications, or legitimate discussions of digital use and safety is irresponsible. There's an overwhelming amount of research that demonstrates that districts using the one-to-one device plan are only valuable when a well-crafted plan is in place and proper reviews and audits are conducted to ensure the tools are used appropriately. I seek to be a partner, not a combatant in this effort. Let's work together to change things for the better instead of continuing along a broken path by conducting an audit of student iPad usage, implementing universally accepted technology standards, and ensuring that our youngest students understand how to effectively integrate technology into lifelong learning and safeguard their future. If we're going to give students an iPad starting in kindergarten, there should be significant thought and purpose as to how this tool will positively impact their education. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Draper. Our next pre-registered speaker is Kristen Mays.
Hello, I'm Kristen Mays from 1851 Pioneer Drive. The transportation department has made some great improvements this year. Bus routes are shorter, high school students can sleep longer, buses are more timely, staffing is less of a problem. These are all great things. Restoring one of the 4 eliminated bus stops on Pioneer Drive will not diminish any of these improvements, not in terms of cost, time, or staffing. Now that many stops in my neighborhood have been eliminated, many parents drive their kids to the bus stop. This increases traffic, decreases the visibility of small children crossing the street, and leaves less room for the bus to maneuver. Recall last month's meeting when 2 Pioneer Drive fathers described an elementary student nearly being hit by the car of a mother driving her child home from the bus stop. After that meeting, a board member suggested that these parents and students should just walk to the bus stop to improve visibility on the crowded street. Well, the way parents get their children to the bus stop is their business. It's not up to the school board, it's not up to the transportation department or neighbors to dictate. It's a public street and they're allowed to be there. Judging by the lack of cars at previous year's bus stops, the only way to reduce the number of cars driving near the stops is to reduce the distance from home and by restoring at least one of the eliminated stops on our street. I wonder, has anyone asked the bus driver how he feels about driving a 20,000-pound bus through this congested stop with rambunctious little kids spilling onto the street? Well, I won't talk on record for him, but I'd encourage you to ask him that. See if he feels that this is a safe situation or if this could be made much more safer by splitting these 20 or so children and their parents between 2 stops. And while I'm here, I'd like to address on record a question I've been asked multiple times now. The question is, well, your assigned stop is at the entrance to the subdivision. Why are you going to this stop in the middle of the subdivision? The answer for me and many of my fellow parents is that each stop is the same distance from my house, so there's no safety to be gained by having a shorter walk for my kids. There's more traffic at that assigned stop. At least half the cars that enter and exit our subdivision pass through that stop every morning. We're also uncomfortable with that stop's proximity to Rochester Road for reasons that I'm not going to discuss on a public YouTube video. I also use the stop in the center of the subdivision because when I have a 9 a.m. meeting, I can cut through a couple yards and get to my house in time for that meeting. There's no shortcut for my assigned stop. This is important because, as Dr. Hyland mentioned when he visited our stop, parental supervision is what makes our stop as safe as it can be. I don't want a closer stop for my own convenience. I want one so I can protect the kids who are there without losing my job. Dr. Hyland, I think you can relate to this. When you visited our stop, you also had a pressing work issue come up when your car was parked over at my house. How did you get back to your car? Well, you got a ride from the police officer. And did you get a ride because it was inconvenient to walk? Or was it that there's only so much time you can spend walking to and from and staying at the bus stop while still meeting the requirements of your work? We parents understand. We have jobs too. We have the same problem. I'm lucky that my husband or I can usually be at the stop. There are parents who aren't so lucky. I've been there on multiple occasions watching a tiny kindergartner sitting on the sewer grate on the corner of the street when his parents weren't there. Sitting on that low sewer grate, his head was no more than 2 feet off the ground. What are the chances of a driver seeing him as they make the turn? He refused to leave the sewer, so I stood next to him so cars could see me standing at 5'6" tall and then go around both of us. Dr. Hyland, you're right. Parental supervision at elementary stops is important. Remember that goal 5 of NA's internal comprehensive plan is to cultivate an environment where families feel secure. Clearly, the families on my street do not feel our children are secure. You've been begged by many families over and over again to restore an eliminated stop and help us make our most vulnerable little children safer. It will cost nothing. Why wouldn't you do it? Thank you for your time.
Thank you. That was the end of our pre-registered speakers. If there is anyone else in the audience who would like to speak for up to 2 minutes, now is your opportunity. Is there anyone in the audience who would like to speak for 2 minutes on any topic? Okay. Seeing none, we'll move on to our closing items and announcements. Does anyone have any announcements? Mrs. Blackburn.
Thank you, Mrs. Warner. I have some really exciting
Good news for us. We have now pretty much finished our fall sports season, and we came away with 3 state champions. Our boys golf team, the boys water polo team, and just this past weekend, the girls volleyball team, all state champions. So pretty amazing. A lot of school districts hope to even get to a championship, and we managed to come away with 3 of them. So congratulations to all of those teams. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Blackburn. Anyone else? Seeing none, we are adjourned.